There's a light in the sky, rising in the air. There's a feeling so strong. It's time to light the fire, like a bright shining light. Love, getting more out of life. Love, sharing time with friends, feeling so strong.
Hello and welcome to the House of Wellness. I'm Luke Darcy and I'm here alongside, well, the very consistent Joe Stanley. Welcome, Joe.
Well, that's a lovely thing to say, Dars. Consistent. What a great descriptor. I guess that's a good thing. Lovely as always to be with you as well.
Most definitely that's a good thing, Joe. It's a great attribute to have and to be on the receiving end of someone who always acts the same way over time. I find that pretty reassuring.
Well, consistent parents are the best parents, in my opinion. I say that to my husband all the time. But on descriptors, how about the word ecstatic? Because that's how most of us are feeling these days as we get back to the way of life that's more familiar to us. I've been to the hairdresser. Can you tell? It was the best.
You enjoyed it?
It was so exciting.
Small pleasures in life, isn't it? You realise how important they are, Joe. Looking unbelievable as always, but it couldn't have come at a better time. Researchers at Monash Uni have just released results from their latest study with 400,000 people that shows a lack of daylight exposure is a big risk factor for things like depression, moodiness and insomnia.
Well, it explains a lot because when we were locked up, many of us in ISO, and it was during winter, particularly in Melbourne, well, that explains it's scientifically proven when the sun is out, get as much light as you can because it really lifts your mood.
Actually, I've been reading a lot about vitamin D lately, Joe, and obviously we get that from the sun, but having high vitamin D levels is so good for protecting us from things like infection as well. So most of us feel good in nature, so it's no surprise, Joe, that spending more time indoors has had the reverse effect on many of us. And we were talking words earlier. Well, here's one for you. Biophilia.
I'm fascinated.
Scientific term which is best explained by how you feel when you go on a bushwalk, have a relaxing day on the beach or take a stroll through the botanical gardens.
Well, you do feel calmer, a bit more chilled, a bit more carefree perhaps, and it's believed that's because we're hardwired to be connected to nature. And it's why, Dars, I love having indoor plants. They look beautiful, they improve the air quality, and I do feel better when I look at them, and I'm thankful to my husband for looking after them because I kill everything in my path.
Well done, Daz. Brilliant stuff. And I reckon that's why we've been in such an uplifting vibe here at the House of Wellness, being surrounded by the greenery that has make it a very positive experience here, Joe.
Oh, it's so beautiful. We're lucky to come here. I love the space and the bees. We love these bees. There's always a beautiful faint hum in the background with thousands of those little guys working away. You and I are always over there going, what's this dude doing? It's awesome. And no wonder they account for around 1/3 of the food that we consume each day by pollinating crops.
Yeah, I'm not sure what these ones are, but there's over 1,600 species of Aussie native bees. And as you said, Joe, they're a vital part of our ecosystem. They've really become the rock stars of the insect world, with lots of people starting hives at home.
It means you get honey for free and they add a literal buzz to the garden. Plus, as Queensland mum Natasha Robig discovered, the health benefits don't stop with the honey.
There's something on this side. Is that it? Is that her?
Yep, there she is.
I found a queen.
You found a queen. There she is, right there.
Jason and I never thought we'd be beekeepers in a million years. Actually, it was probably never something that even crossed our minds.
She's a beautiful looking queen.
Beekeeping was never on Natasha and Jason Robig's radar, but the birth of their daughter Miranda changed all that.
Jason was fly in, fly out at the time. He was working away for a month at a time and often home for only a week. So the challenge for me was I was working, I had a toddler who had eczema, and she wasn't sleeping and I wasn't sleeping, and it was a very difficult time for us just to try and get the eczema under control.
Miranda suffered severe eczema and the available topical creams brought no relief.
She was only a little baby and we'd apply the topical ointments and she'd scream and scream and scream. And yeah, okay, it did help. But we also wanted to find something that wouldn't cause that much trauma for her.
And our naturopath suggested researching the benefits of raw honey and beeswax. And we thought, oh, that's something that we'd never thought of before.
The couple bought 2 beehives and started doing their research, but they found little information that would help. So their bee education came down to some quality mentoring and a lot of trial and error.
That one looks like it could use a bit more work on the other side. We'll leave that for the girls. The more that we learned about bees, the more interesting they became to us. We learned so much about how they adapt to their environment and the different environments that they come across. We learn how they communicate with each other and how they forage for food and water sources. And we learn the difference between happy bees and unhappy bees.
Might take that one.
You're right.
They're just so industrious. They're so smart. They can teach us so much. It's not just about honey production for us, it's about pollination, how they interact, how social they are.
Armed with all they'd learned, Jason and Natasha set about finding a natural solution to Miranda's eczema.
It started pretty much with just raw honey and it was a sticky mess. It worked. Like just having topical honey applied is beneficial, not so much for your bed sheets and your clothes and everything else. But then we started trialling different butters and different ratios. It was too hard, too soft, it would melt or it wouldn't melt. So it did take a lot of tweaking.
Miranda was obviously our guinea pig as such. We were trialling all of our recipes on her and we were testing the oils, the level of oils that were in the balm and how much she needed for her skin. And we realised that she was allergic to certain things, so we had to be mindful about the oils and the essential oils that we put into the product.
It gradually evolved. It wasn't any one decision that Tasha or I made. Just saw, well, we're doing some good work here and we want to keep expanding and growing, and our fascination grew. And then with that, you start developing more hives, and you start getting more honey. And then it just gradually built into a business. We never actually meant to go into business. It was just a hobby that turned into a business.
In their search to help alleviate Miranda's inflamed skin, Natasha and Jason have developed a whole new respect for these hard-working foragers.
I'm passionate about getting women and children into the beekeeping industry and breaking down those barriers. So often when you ask somebody what a beekeeper looks like, they'll often refer to an older gentleman in a field with a bee suit on and a smoker tending to his beehives. But what I'm trying to communicate to anyone who wants to listen is that a beekeeper is anybody.
Not only has Miranda's eczema eased, the bee business is booming. They've got over 220 hives in untouched areas across Queensland and northern New South Wales.
The bees do all the work and make the honey, which is great. Honey sells itself. We don't need to do that. But we also had a lot of people, like market gardeners in our region, who grow their own fruit and vegetables. And they were unable to sell all their fruit and vegetables, so we thought, well, that's waste. So we reached out to a few of them and we started repurposing some of their reject fruit, like blueberries and raspberries, and actually infused that into a creamed honey. We rescue beehives, we rehabilitate abandoned hives. We constantly getting calls for people who have got bees in their walls and their ceilings. We'll go and cut them out from the wall cavity and rehome them. And then of course we expand our colonies by, once they get too strong, we have to split them to make 2 weaker colonies. And that way they'll build up to be stronger 2 colonies later on in life.
Everyone who enters the world of bees becomes their biggest fans. They're intriguing, industrious, integral to the ecosystem, and frankly, just fun to watch.
Bees communicate with each other. They're actually quite expressive characters. So they have a waggle dance, what we call the waggle dance. And what happens is they have scout bees and the bees go out and find food sources. And when they do find food sources, they come back to their hives and their colonies and they do a waggle dance, which communicates to other bees where they've found food sources. You know, every beekeeper that you talk to, they're still getting stung even after years and generations of beekeeping. You can't really avoid being stung. It always hurts the same. It never gets any easier. I often get asked the question, do you still get stung and does it hurt? Yes and yes.
So, Jo, have you ever tasted honey directly from the hive?
I haven't, and I've heard that you can get ones where you actually are able to sort of, it's kind of like pouring a beer, perhaps. That's what I'm imagining, but it's honey.
That is a brilliant Aussie invention, that. We literally have a tap on the hive and it doesn't disturb the bees, but you've got honey on tap, Jo, which is a brilliant thing.
How beautiful. Well, Natasha said she could tell when bees were unhappy and asked one of the things that could cause that is if the queen is nasty, then the colony will mirror her behaviour and become mean too. Can you believe that? The queen sets the tone of the hive. She's kind of like the boss lady, a bit like in my house. So other things might be bad weather, hunger if pollen and nectar is sparse, and sometimes it's down to clumsy beekeeping. that annoys the bees, and I can understand that too.
Well, nothing worse than a cranky bee, Joe. Still to come, we look at the charity that's bringing older blokes together through cooking classes.
And how much liquid can you drink before needing a toilet break? We'll take one right now because we'll be back after this. A few weeks ago, Aussie fitness guru Michelle Bridges broke the taboo on bladder leakage. It affects 1 in 3 women, especially as we age or after childbirth. But men can be affected too. I do need to ask, it's a personal question. Darcy, how are you with your pelvic floor exercises?
I could feel that coming my way, Joan. I don't think it's something I've ever contemplated, but one thing Beck and I did with the kids when they were young was encourage them to go to the toilet for a long trip. I think you always felt like, with 4 of them in the car, that's going to be a smart idea, but apparently it's not the case.
No, as it turns out, the so-called just-in-case wheeze can make our bladders a bit lazy. Here's leading urogynecologist Dr Jennifer King with how to put the power back into our pelvic floors. So what is an overactive bladder?
An overactive bladder is one that contracts inappropriately, right, when it isn't necessarily a big volume, and unpredictably. Those people with an overactive bladder, and we'll all know them, can't hold on. They go every time they see a loo. They plan trips around toilets. They cannot resist. If they get that urge, they have to go, otherwise they're terrified they're going to wet themselves, and they quite possibly will. So it's a very different sort of bladder. It's not weak. It's probably got far too much activity in there. But if that's your sort of bladder or your children's bladders, the worst thing you can be doing is saying, go, go, go.
So starting with our children, what should we be teaching them?
When you go to the loo, you get that urge to go, your brain's approved, you toddle off. You sit down, the urethra, the tube out from the bladder relaxes, the pelvic floor relaxes. So what you're doing is a good wee. So if you try to make your bladder go when it doesn't want to, just because mummy said go now, we're going out, you will not get that nice coordinated contraction, relaxation that you need to get a nice good flow. Now, again, occasionally not the end of the world. But if you are consistently trying to pass urine in that way, if you think about it, if you put some sort of blockage in the way of your bladder, like a prostate, or if you're a little lab rat and I tie off your urethra because I want to experiment on you, that sounds a bit ghoulish, doesn't it?
It does.
But what I'm getting at is if you partially obstruct a bladder, the bladder's response is to fight harder, to try and overcome that obstruction. It gets more urgent, it gets more spasmy, it gets more uncoordinated. And that's what you do to someone who already has a bit of an overactive bladder if you make them go when they don't need to.
As an adult, if I have an overactive bladder, what is my response to the urge to need to wee?
You'll run, won't you?
Yes.
You'll run. So you're bouncing that bladder on top of everything else, on top of the fact it's already contracting. But you are scared. You are scared it's going to embarrass you. You've been mortified in the past. You are not going to let that happen. You will go every 20 minutes, despite the fact the bladder doesn't actually care how much is in there. And it will leak at 20 mils, it will leak at 200 mils. It may leak somewhere in between. All you're doing is making that bladder worse. Look, if you find that your bladder is controlling you, that you can't finish what you were doing, particularly if a tap's running, that you can't finish a phone call, that you can't do a particular task, you drop everything and run, your bladder is in control of you. So it's a clue that you need to start working on that.
And what can we do to take control back?
So what you need to do, you've got to look at what you're actually doing, the pattern that your bladder's in. So you need someone to work with. You need your bladder trainer, pelvic floor physiotherapist, continence nurse. You really need someone to give you that moral support. And they will look at how much you're weeing, when you're weeing, how much you're drinking, how much your bowel is part of this pattern. What is your habit with the bladder? What are all those hopelessly unproductive things you do because you're scared of leakage? And you can actually retrain that bladder. But you need to start recognising a normal urge, a very early urge, what you can sit down and cross your legs and hold on a little bit longer, even a minute. Right? Fill up that bladder that little bit more and then perhaps not go until the second time that urge hits. What you don't want is it running your life. If you know it's your bladder that's stopping you doing a whole lot of things you may want to do or places you want to go, I would get that looked into. A lot of people don't go because they'll say, oh, I mentioned it once and the doctor said it was part of ageing and I just had to put up with it. Look, we can't make it go away, but we can certainly make it better. So I would talk with your doctor. If you really find this is getting you down, talk with your doctor. Referrals, as I say, to physiotherapists or to continence nurses, look at the medication. If things are really bad, you'll need to see a specialist. But sometimes we just want things a bit easier and life a little bit more manageable, and we'll get on with it.
On the other end of the scale, is it a good thing or a bad thing to hold on for a long time?
Realistically, we would rarely hold on too long. It's just about impossible. It really is much more that people go far too frequently.
Interesting fact, Joe, or at least I think it is, that the normal bladder holds between 400 and 600 mils of liquid and should take about 2 hours to make its way down to the bladder.
Well, 400, 600, that's a lot. Like 250 mils is a cup, right?
Correct.
So that's like 3 cups. That has blown my mind. And there is no way that I could last that long after drinking that much liquid, I've got to say. In fact, I need to go now. So can we wrap this up?
Well, hold that thought just for a minute. We're going to be back right after this on the House of Wellness.
Hi, I'm Jade Kisnorbo and welcome to my world of beauty. From the latest trends in skincare and makeup to creating a look that's just right for you, I've got the tips and tricks to make you look and feel great from the inside out. Okay, so Tegan, we may not be plumbers or builders, although my nails right now may say otherwise. We still require tools in the beauty industry, and I think as a professional, I'm always going to say it's going to elevate your skin game.
I agree, Jade. It's all about bringing that salon experience into the comfort of your own home. I know I have been, but I'm assuming you're not talking about the spanner and wrench kind of tools.
No, I'm definitely not. I'm talking about something far more glamorous. I'm talking about the Revlon beauty tools with their face defuzzer and their facial roller.
Love it, Jade. A gal can never have enough beauty tools in their toolkit.
That's true. What I love most about the at-home salon experience is that it's cost-effective, that it's great if you don't have the confidence to necessarily go out and talk about your skin with a stranger. And more than anything, if you're time poor, it's got that covered because you can do it at home and quickly.
Jade, I'm actually oddly excited to try this face defuzzer. I've got a girlfriend who has done it religiously for years, twice a month, and I'm always like, what are you doing with your complexion? She always credits the face defuzzer.
Tegan, it looks like it's going to be really satisfying, and especially because the blades on the face defuzzer are crafted from high-quality Japanese steel. So you know it's just going to skim over your face and eliminate any of that peach fuzz in its way. To use the face defuzzer, it's quite simple. You just need to start with a dry, fresh face, so make sure it's clean, and then use the blade in small downward strokes and try and avoid the eye area. Until you get rid of it, you don't know the benefits. So when you put on your face serums, when you put on all your foundations, they're going to just melt in and be absorbed even far deeper because nothing is in its way, the barrier is fresh, clean, and no more hair. So while you're over there eliminating your peach fuzz, I'm going to treat myself to a mini massage with the Revlon facial roller which is so perfectly suited to me because it's made out of jade stone.
Oh, I hate to burst your bubble there, Jack, but my middle name's actually Jade too. So this precious natural stone is named after us both.
So I've taken this roller out of the fridge, and especially with the smaller end, I like to start near the nose and then roll it out, and it works really well with eradicating any puffiness. And the thing that I love mainly about this is it increases all your blood circulation and blood flow, which is really important when wanting that beautiful, radiant, plump skin. It's the perfect prep before makeup. Plus, it's just super relaxing.
Yeah, it looks it. Can I have a turn?
In a minute.
Well, there's another tool to go in the beauty kit just for me, obviously. Not. You're welcome to it, though. Thanks, Jade Kay and Tegan, for sharing that.
Well, speaking of toolkits, Joe, we've done some stories in the past about men's sheds, which are really an updated version of the backyard shed that's long been a part of the Aussie culture.
They've made such an impact in unblocking the resistance for a lot of men in opening up about their feelings and well-being. There's no secret that a lot of men, particularly older men, are reluctant to talk and often don't ask for help. It's just not on their radar.
It's a place where they can connect with friends and put their handyman skills to use as well.
It can be even harder for men who live on their own, especially if they're older and isolated, and they've never really had to learn how to prepare a proper meal, which is why the Men's Shed has now ventured into the kitchen with a 12-month pilot program designed to sharpen up their members' cooking skills. For most of their lives, the senior members of the Maroochydore Men's Shed on Queensland's Sunshine Coast have barely stepped foot in the kitchen. But it's never too late to learn a new skill. For 8 months, in-home care provider Home Instead have been trialling a beginner's cooking program at the shed, taught by caregiver Anne DeGarris.
Today, it's going to be fairly simple. It's going to be things that get lost in the bottom of your crisper. As a carer, I see some clients who are quite capable at cooking and their nutrition and they're aware of it. And I see others that just have nothing in their fridge. There might be a beer, there might be some butter and really no vegetables. And they're frail and they get more frail and then they can do less and it's a downward spiral. So it's good when we can go in and change that. It's tough. Right. Ta-da. I know.
All us blokes that are living on their own, they need that sort of instruction.
So now we've got this.
There's a lot that have lost their wives, there's a lot that have never done any cooking, but the bulk of us still probably have a wife. And I think being new age, we're sharing the load.
Love this big board. Who made this big board? Was that made here? Yep. We've been teaching them to cook a variety of things, working on one different group of foods at a time, really. Like we did eggs was the first one. It was frittatas and all sorts of different things you can do with eggs. We've had potato and taught them different ways to use that, including mashing to start with.
What do you want to skin?
Skinned and just sliced up, however you like, doesn't matter. Even things like which aisle do you find things in the supermarket?
It's all good. It's all good to learn and participate.
And I learn a bit, like I've never heard of fried avocado before. But I intend to fry some avocado and see if it's edible.
Does anyone know what diabetes is?
While Anne covers the basics of preparing healthy and delicious meals, dietitian Alice Llewellyn preaches the importance of good nutrition.
You know, your sugar stores. Malnutrition is a big thing with this age group, or not adequate nutrition to support their health and well-being. And a lot of that comes down to inadequate protein or inadequate energy from their diet. And it's understandable as they perhaps start to lose their loved ones, or maybe their cooking skills start to reduce or decline. They might be more reliant on convenience foods that might not have that nutrition, or their appetite might start to reduce as well.
What's the difference between a frittata and an omelette?
Well, an omelette is normally...
I've been sort of taught by Home Instead to cook the proper tucker, not rubbish sort of thing. And of course it's very beneficial, it gives you a bit more energy. I'd like to have a bit more energy again at my age, you know, I'm the big 90 now. Yeah, so I'm old enough to vote.
Now, do we all know how to check if eggs are off? I love that these guys come and speak to me afterwards and say, as in today, I didn't know that an off egg floats, things like that. And they all come to me with something different that they've picked up. And so they come back the next time and pick up one little thing.
Geez, I'm glad I turned up.
I'm glad you turned up as well, Albie.
I love veggies. I've always made sure I've got plenty of veggies, you know, like a lot of greenery, because I don't want to get scurvy.
I remember when Albie told me what he does with his mince, and he said he puts it in the pan, he turns it over, and then he puts sauce on it. And I thought, wow, you know, there's no veg, you're just having a chunk of mince with some sauce. And it's taken him 6 months to cotton on to the fact that you can actually use mixed herbs in there and a bit of Worcester sauce, or he was a bit concerned at the beginning that what was Dijon mustard, that was all a bit much. But now he comes up and says, I'm using that, that's great. And he's getting excited about eating proper food again, which is terrific.
So how are your cooking skills, Darcy? I know when Beck's away you tend to opt for a juice cleanse. So how are you in the kitchen?
Yeah, not great, Joe. I think you're on the money on that front. I can survive and the kids can sort of get through, but it's not a great enjoyable experience when I take to the kids. I happen to be a good assistant, but maybe it's a reflection on me. Not that good. How about Daz? Is he capable?
Daz is great. He's a great cook.
Really?
I love it when he cooks. And myself, not so great. So, but listen, not that I want to go on about lockdowns, because we have moved on, but just saying during lockdowns, Google saw a spike in searches for comfort food recipes, things like banana bread and muffins, pizza dough, lasagna, all made the recipe search top 10. So it's a good thing that gyms are reopening, I've got to say.
Yeah, Luke Hines has a few things to say about that, and he's coming up next on the House of Wellness.
My skin health is everything to me. So when I'm feeling my best, my skin normally looks its best.
One of the most exciting things in skincare is when a brand that you already trust and you already know is reliable and affordable and accessible is when they extend that range to fill all the other gaps that you have. So that's why I'm so excited about this everyday skincare range. I have been a very long time lover of Bondi Sands. I love the Australian pride that it brings and projecting that all across the world, but also that it does really embrace in all ways our skin's imperfections.
Sarah, now tell me about your skin. Any concerns there?
Jade, where do we even start?
You've got great skin.
I'm actually pretty happy right now, but I do find when I get stressed or certain times during my cycle, I get those blemishes starting to come back. There's a bit of dryness, I forget to hydrate, but overall, I'm just looking to get that clearer complexion.
Skincare does not need to be complicated. So my recommendation for everyday skincare routine would always begin with a good cleanser. And then we go to our thinnest to thickest product. That's the best way to remember it. So start with our serums. So everyday skin requires different things at different times. Any skin concern you have, any little problem area, whether it's redness, aging, just needing a little more brightness in your complexion, this is where a serum would come and correct and target that area. So the serum I think that best suits your skin is the Begin Again serum. It's got amazing ingredients in it like the vitamin B3 and the niacinamide. A little bit of zinc in there too, and what it's going to do is really give you that clear, beautiful complexion that you're after.
When I'm choosing skincare, I really look for the use of natural botanicals. That's really important to me. Science-backed ingredients so that you can really achieve those amazing, really clear results in your skin. And also Australian-made brands make a big difference for me. I have always enjoyed the idea of a serum. I don't think I really understood where it fitted in my skincare routine.
Okay, so now we're going to get to the application of serums. The best way to apply it is have a clean, fresh base that you've cleansed twice. Apply around 5 cent to a 10 cent coin in the size of your application and rub them together. Don't absorb too much into your hands, but heat up those beautiful active ingredients and then press it into your face. and it'll just absorb nicely into your skin and start working.
I actually love that you've just taught me to press it in rather than really rub too hard, and it just goes on so nicely. I can feel my skin drinking up that moisture.
What I really love about Bondi Sands ethos is skin is skin. It has its imperfections and it's not all about being photoshopped, flawless and perfect. And they've embraced that, but you really have to be happy in your own skin.
I think that's just the reality of what makes us all beautiful, that we don't all look like one static representation of a person. There are so many ups and downs and imperfections, and that's what makes life, but also us, so unique.
Jade, Kay and Sarah with some top tips on putting your best face forward. And in terms of current beauty trends, face masks are clearly here to stay. And not just the blue and white surgical ones. Face masks are making fashion statements of their own.
Now, you might remember this one, Joe. If you've got a spare $250,000, an 18-carat white gold and diamond number from Jaku & Co Jewellers, although it has to be worn over another mask to actually protect you, it sort of seems maybe a bit pointless to me.
I think it's about the look.
Really?
Spectacular, don't you think? It screams chafing to me, though. I don't think it looks comfortable at all. Well, one man that's always got the answers on how to keep us protected and healthy, including when it comes to face masks, is Gerald Quigley.
Face masks have almost become part of our DNA these days. They help reduce the risk of us inhaling viral matter. But the integrity of the skin underneath the mask can be annoyingly damaged. Soothing and cleansing the area there seems logical, doesn't it? A restorative cream has two functions. It will settle the area under the mask, but it will also protect that area from becoming further irritated and chafed. Either way, masks are going to be around for a while yet. Retaining fluid can be a real challenge. It causes discomfort and causes pain in many cases. Our circulatory system, our kidneys, our hormones can all play a role. Sometimes even medications can cause fluid to be pooled in the bottom of your legs. Now, if that happens, then you must discuss that with either your pharmacist or your doctor. In hard-working osteoarthritic joints like knees, celery is an amazing herb. It's a very gentle diuretic, and it works very well in combination with turmeric to reduce inflammation and pain. But discovering the underlying cause of that swelling is the most important thing here. For those states trying to cope with homeschooling, it's very hard for the parents to help their children maintain their concentration and effectively do the work that's been set by the teachers and the school. I don't know how I would have coped, but we know that good exercise during breaks and sensible eating is very important. But don't forget the role that polyunsaturated fatty acids play, particularly fish oil and evening primrose oil. It's the ratio of these two oils that are very important for concentration. So have a word to your health practitioner about it. And don't forget, if you have questions about your health, seek advice from your healthcare practitioner. But most of all, stay well, live well, be well.
Welcome back to the House of Wellness Kitchen. Now, for those of you who might be new here, it's really important you know that I'm all about bringing the easy and speedy recipes that get you one step closer to that optimal health that we're all after. Now, my mate GQ, well, mate, what do you actually do apart from just eat my food?
Well, Hinesy, I'm all about identifying the herbal remedies and also pointing out to you what makes your recipes so healthy.
Oh, good save. All right, got it. Now, speaking of recipe, today's recipe is my choc blueberry thick shake. Now, I'm going to be giving you a little bit of a test this time, GQ. That's because there's two words you don't often see in the one sentence, and that's chocolate and healthy. Good luck.
And I can see on the laptop that you've got raw cacao, which is actually chocolate in its natural form without the added sugar. And I can also see avocado. And both of these foods are rich sources of the mineral magnesium.
Now, I actually like to call magnesium the muscle mineral, not just because I think I've got great muscles, joking, but it's actually fantastic for muscle function.
That's so true, Heinzie, because magnesium's involved in over 300 biochemical reactions in the body. But as you said, it's more about muscles, particularly in helping muscles contract and also helping muscles relax. Now, what that does is actually help increase flexibility and reduce our risk of injury.
Which is fundamental for all of us to keep moving, not just those who are already fit and active. Now, speaking of moving, GQ, I've got to get these ingredients moving to make my thick shake. Hang tight.
Now, despite its significant role in muscle function and our other contributions to our general health and well-being, Heinzie, over 80% of Australians are actually magnesium deficient.
Now, you'll know if you're one of those people if you experience spasms, cramps and twitches, but it's not completely your fault because magnesium is one of only 7 essential macro minerals, meaning you really need to get a fair bit of it from your food. And the good news is there's heaps of food that has plenty of it.
And we can always turn to supplementation if we feel we're not getting enough magnesium in our diet.
Cheers to that, GQ.
Well, Heinzie, my glass is empty. Where's mine, please?
Well, mate, it's not about glass being half empty, it's about being half full. Haven't you heard the saying?
I want my share.
The A to Z of Vitamins is brought to you by Ethical Nutrients. Evidence-based, meticulously crafted with premium ingredients for real results.
Heinzie and GQ in the kitchen there talking up the benefits of the mighty magnesium, Joe.
Now, just recently, Heinzie posted a very personal and honest insight into the pressure he was putting on himself with body image. So he's a regular user of most of the social media platforms and had a revelation about what it was that he was posting as opposed to how he was really feeling. And often, you know, the two don't match up. For him, he found that to be the case. So on what came as a big surprise to a lot of people, Heinzie decided to tell it the way it really is.
For over 15 years, I've been so strict on myself. I'm talking about training my ass off, making sure I eat perfectly all the time, and then also trying to think positively. And at the start of COVID, I was exhausted. I just needed a break. So I kind of gave myself 2 months of, all right, I'm going to eat what I want, when I want. I'm going to train if I feel like it. And if I don't, I'm just going to sleep in. But what started as 2 months became a slippery slope. And I became addicted to almost not looking after myself. And combined lockdowns with loving refined sugars and loving my sleep-ins, things really took a turn. It was hard to put the food down. It was hard to stop eating so much. It was hard to get out of the bed again at 5 a.m. So all these challenges that I hear other people kind of complain about when they're doing a health kick, I was living myself. So it was like, oh, hang on, yeah, it is hard. Now I know how you feel. You're not alone. Totally, I'm with you. So I think like many people, there's a long time where you know you might have a problem. You see your own body in the mirror, but you almost excuse it and you say, oh, no, I'll get back to it. I will. I'll start tomorrow. And I've got to be honest, I was so embarrassed. There was a few times where I was being like mic'd up for work or for segments, and I would A, make sure I was in a different room than other people so that they wouldn't see my belly while the sound guy was putting my mic on. And B, I was even embarrassed in front of the sound guy because hang on, he's been micing me up for 3 years and I'm shredded, and now I've got this belly that I feel really ashamed about. It was really, really confronting. So I took myself and looked in the mirror and I said, who do I want to be as a person? Now, I'm not just talking about the physicality. Yeah, that was a huge factor, but I want to be happy again. I want to feel confident again. I want to feel free to walk down the beach and have a swim without being ashamed of people looking at me. And genuinely in my head, I thought people were laughing at me. Because, oh, look, there's that guy, you know, how embarrassing. He's meant to be health and fitness and he's, you know, got a big tummy. I was so humiliated and I wanted to reframe it and go, okay, I want to stand up confidently and say who I am, what I'm about, how I eat, how I move. And that has to start today. And rather than doing anything drastic, I just did small little steps each day that felt manageable. If there's anything I could say to anyone out there who struggles with their relationship with social media, You don't have to be like anyone else, and you shouldn't be. How boring that would be. So curate your feed. Unfollow people who aren't healthy for you and follow people who inspire you. It is a real recipe for making social media work for you.
You know, Darcy, Hines is just one of a lot of regular social media users who are really sick of posting what's not real. I think it's a really brave thing to do, and I love that people are celebrating who they really are, because a lot of us can really relate.
He's such a great person, Hines, isn't he, Joe? We love him. He's got a big heart and a really powerful message with this. And I think for a generation that are looking at those unrealistic images on their screens, having come out of lockdown, it's a real concern about where that's ending up. So well done, Hinesy. Great inspiration. We really respect everything you do. We're going to take a break and we'll be back right after this. Now, Joe, the saying, getting all your ducks in a row, has a whole new meaning for me after finding out about the science behind it. And there is, I promise you, a science behind it.
I love this, and I'm one step ahead of you, Darcy. There actually was a study to find out why ducks swim in a row, to find out how much energy it saves those little duckling legs frantically swimming away under the water. And the researchers did it mathematically, not just by lining up the ducks.
I love these sayings that we often have and then understanding the meaning behind them. The results are to be expected that the wave drag from the parent duck helps propel the ducklings behind them, so they don't have to swim as hard, which makes sense. So it's really a battle for first spot. Now, how do they sort out the order, though, Joe? That's the thing I want to know.
No, Darcy, it turns out it doesn't matter if you're number 1 in the row or number 5. The wave created by the parent duck passes equally down the queue, so all the ducklings benefit. I love it. So the follow the leader thing they've got going on gives them all a boost as a little team.
It's a bit like the peloton in the Tour de France, Joe, in some ways.
Exactly like
Maybe
that.
not. I'll never look at ducks in a row the same way again after understanding that. So, well, that's it for our show today. You can check out the House of Wellness website for further information on anything you've seen on today's show.
You can hear me and Gerard Quigley on the House of Wellness radio show every Sunday, and don't miss the latest House of Wellness podcast series, Best of You, where we talk about lots of different kinds of mental health challenges, from bad habits to conflict with your kids and everything in between. You can check it out wherever you get your podcast.
I look forward to doing that. I had a great conversation this week with Professor Pat McGorry, who was the Australian of the Year in 2010. He's the founder of Headspace, and what a great contribution that man has made in the world of preventive mental health. So download the Empowering Leaders podcast wherever you get your podcasts and listen to Professor Pat McGorry and many other inspiring leaders. Thanks, as always, to our great friends at Chemist Warehouse. Stay well, and we'll see you next time.